for Global Business Update. Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Great to have you, Michael. Good to see you. Missed you yesterday.
Oh yes, good morning. Yes, sorry, I had to go for the what they're doing is that if you really want to know, they're boosting the COVID things here. So I had to go for mine yesterday, and when you go, you've got to go. You know what I mean? So sorry about yesterday. Anyway, shares in Asia Pacific rose Thursday morning following a rebound on Wall Street, which of course came in turn at the fact that the Bank of England intervened in the bond markets. More of that to come, obviously, in a moment. Hong Kong's Hang Seng jumped 1.33, Kospi a bit up, Nikkei up 2, very slightly. Shanghai Composite up 0.8%. On the subject of currency intervention, very interesting warning from the Central Bank of China, or the People's Bank of China, this morning, warning against speculation either upwards or downwards in the yuan. Now, the thing about foreign currencies is, as I often say, central banks shouldn't really be talking about them because it suggests something. And we know that the renminbi, or the yuan, has actually crossed the 7.2 level against the dollar yesterday. I think what this is the People's Bank of China saying that if you want to speculate against us, that's absolutely fine. But don't expect us not to reply in terms of the central bank there, which they can do very easily. Two China companies listing in Hong Kong, their IPOs sharply dropped in their initial public offerings. A China electrical vehicle maker Leap Motor down, and Onewo as well. That's part of the Chinese property company Vanke down as well. It follows a bit of a fallback, really, on the interest of retail investors in Hong Kong, in stocks listed there, in Chinese stocks listed there. As you'd quite expect, of course, the Nasdaq doesn't want to get left alone in this act, and it's been saying this morning that it's got a very strong, as it puts it, pipeline of Chinese company that want to list on their US exchange in the coming months. And some 30 companies have gone public, or China-based companies, Chinese companies have gone public on the Nasdaq in the first half of 2021. And as I've often reported on this program in the recent days, this audit requirements are gradually softening between China and the United States, so that's helping. Let's turn our attention to the United States, which snapped a 6-day losing streak. Again, it's all to do really with the Bank of England. Again, I'll come on to that. It became the pound really has been the centre of attention, but the actions of the central bank actually put a bit of life under the equity market as well. Yields actually falling as far as the bond market's concerned. Joe Biden has approved a £1.1 billion extra deal for military aid to Ukraine. Russia is denying the Nord Stream sabotage investigations. Now, this is quite important. I was listening to a German energy minister here, and we know there have been 3 damages to both Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. Europe and Russia say that sabotage can't be worked out. Here's what's actually happening right now: is that Germany is holding back. They've offered to give it because this happened on what is effectively Swedish and Norwegian, even though it's the seabed, it's still there to investigate. They have actually said that they will help if necessary. They'll help these kind of investigations as necessary. The question actually asked is, and the EU are just carrying on from that, it plans to respond to what it describes as deliberate acts by Moscow, which is in the gas pipeline sabotage. Moscow's denied this. The United States, it's saying the United States was involved. They've denied it too. There is one question, which again, we're not going to see a great deal about this for about 10 days, because until the pipes have got to be emptied before any investigation can take place. But ask yourselves the following question: why would Russia do this? Because it seems to be seem to be burning its bridges, because at least it was the one big export that it could have had to Europe. Why is it actually doing this right now? That is a question which people are actually asking here. Coincidentally, a new pipeline has opened from Norway into Poland, and Norway has got now the military defending some of its installations. Norway's gas supply is seen by security chiefs in the EU as the most important target in Europe right now. Now, let's talk about the bond markets and the UK mini budget and all the rest of it. I mean, the jury is saying right now that Kwasi Kwarteng's budget nearly broke the bond markets. What actually applied the pressure yesterday was the way in which pensions work, which actually their liabilities have to balance their assets. And when they're caught short on that, they have to sell assets. And some of these assets were equities and all the rest of it. And so it went on. And so the Bank of England has started on this £65 billion bond buying expedition to stem crisis in the government bond markets. It won't necessarily be happening in one day. It's going to be over the next 10 days, and the maximum allowed is £5 billion. Again, yesterday I was thinking to myself, well, here's a complete reversal of the way in which quantitative easing was actually working. The bank was saying it was actually withdrawing. Now it's offering more money. The verdict of the markets this morning is that they acted in as much as they didn't put up interest rates, but they did what a central bank is supposed to do, like it or not. These are what. And the reason that there is relative optimism in other equity markets is there is a feeling that other central banks may be doing exactly the same kind of thing. I leave those thoughts with you. The UK is already in a full year recession as Europe faces a tough winds. This is down to the analysts at S&P Global. Again, do we really need to be told this? Not sure that we actually do. The recession will be fairly gentle. The most important thing, I think, are energy prices and the inflation thereof. And the S&P thinks that interest rates will rise to 3.25% by February 2023. I have to say that's considerably less than the markets are expecting. But then again, it is S&P Global, and maybe we ought to respect them. And finally, as far as the commodity markets are concerned, I'll just concentrate on oil. They are awaiting a meeting of OPEC Plus, which I think is going to be early October. I'm looking at the 5th of October as a possible date for that. But but the markets are thinking it's entirely likely that there won't be a rush to provide more production with the oil price at around about $80 a barrel right now. And OPEC would really like that at about $100 a barrel. That's the global view this morning.
All right, Michael. I mean, let's put things the way they are. Let's say things the way they are. It's so easy to say the Bank of England, bailed out the bond market yesterday, but it came at a cost. The price tag is 65 billion of monies that shouldn't have been spent, but was spent because of Mr. Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss's madness, like a Tory MP called it. They're destroying the economy. The pound has not rallied at this point. It's still all-time low. I think 107 or 108, that's the benchmark. The question is, when will Kwasi Kwarteng, an economic historian that knows all that happened to Anthony Berber, when will he go? Because people are calling for his head now. Maybe he's going to be the fall guy for this policy that the Conservative felt it was a populist way to claw back. But it's not working, because there's no how you say it's not working. The IMF also came out to say yesterday that it's not working. Everybody in England is saying it's not working. The markets have been jittery. Look at where we are again. We're having that Northern Rock moment again. What is really going on?
Well, I would caution you a little bit, actually. Sterling is up this morning as a result of what happened there. I don't think this is a Northern Rock situation. Any kind of run on anything has been absolutely stopped by what the Bank of England did yesterday. Now, I'm not a supporter of the Bank of England. I don't necessarily believe in so-called independence. I don't think anything is totally independent of anything at all, quite honestly. But having so said, what they did yesterday has been watched very closely by the markets around the world, and also by other central banks around the world, who have mostly thought that the Bank of England acted quite properly yesterday. It did what it was supposed to do, and it stopped. It stopped a rout in the bond market, stopped the bond markets collapsing, and they do that. That's because there are markets which take judgments about things, and there are spivs and there are vagabonds and there are people with a longer term view. And if you're asking me to take a longer term view, because I don't particularly think I'm a spiv or a vagabond, then I would say let's just wait to see what these two are trying to do. And immediately, I mean, there's a lot of tin air about this. To go into a budget, and Mark Carney's been talking about this, the ex-governor of the Bank of England, to actually produce a budget without independent so-called, there's that word again, isn't there? Independent figures on what might be the impact of that from something like the Office for Budget Responsibility, and they didn't do that. They said they needed to rush it, and there wasn't time to do this. There will be a statement on November the 23rd. All these kind of things, I think, shows a completely tin ear. If you really want to know, I was able to talk to a few people yesterday who said that some of the productivity word did not come up in the budget. And that's what every economy has to do. In other words, what you do is anybody can have growth. You just get that with more people in the population. The fact of it is that what you want to have is growth without a contingent rise in prices. That's basically what productivity is. So every criticism you could possibly level at these two politicians is absolutely right. Will Kwarteng go? If I were him, I wouldn't. I'd ride it out, because I think that, you know, if it was a good idea a week ago, why is it still not a good idea today, even though the markets have reacted in the way that you would absolutely expect them to do? So, in other words, I don't have any answers right now for your questions. I can say is that we're observing it right now, but I think the markets need to get their head around what the Bank of England actually did yesterday. It is a lot of money, but then again, if inflation comes down, as these two hope it will, and the Bank of England therefore is less likely to raise interest rates, the smart money needs to be on when interest rates go down, as I keep saying, not when they're going up. And it will be sometime, presumably, let's hope so, at sometime next year. But that's what smart people should be thinking about right now, not the immediate reaction of the markets, not the mistakes that politicians make, because they always do, because that's part of their job. Not will the Chancellor go, but when will things actually calm down? That's what the smart people ought to be thinking about this morning.
Okay, still on the UK. You are right. Stock markets in Asia and Pacific, they've responded positively. Lord Frost and the ministers, they think that Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng are on the right path. But the question is, these short-term measures that have been put in by Peel, the chief economist of the Bank of England, and his team, not the MPC, not the Monetary Policy Committee, because the plan of the Monetary Policy Committee is to sell government debts. So what we have is a reversal. So these particular measures that have been adopted, yes, even pension funds administrators are happy. How far do you think it can go? Do you think it addresses the fundamentals? And then the big question, has Rishi Sunak been vindicated? Do you think Rishi Sunak has been vindicated, particularly now that he's saying, oh, I'm not going to go to the Conservative Party conference. Let Liz Truss own the moment. Can she own the moment with this act of vandalism on the UK economy?
Okay, so Sunak, first of all, again, this is politics, isn't it? I mean, if I were him, unfortunately, what he doesn't want to do, because he'll get ambushed if he goes there. There's no question about it. The news crews will all ambush him, and he doesn't really want to get involved. And he doesn't want to do an I told you so. And the reason I think that he's not doing it is precisely what other German, France, Spanish governments are now saying. You know, it's all the fault of Brexit. You didn't think through Brexit. You didn't think through this budget. This is total irresponsibility. He doesn't really want to get ambushed by that, because make no mistake, he is a politician and he was Chancellor, and he'll still want to keep he want to keep some kind of finger in some kind of pie, because that's what politicians do. Politician first, Chancellor second. I mean, that's just what politicians do. As far as the Bank of England's concerned, again, all I can comment on is what happened in the markets, and the markets were they were very, very worried yesterday, because they didn't know which way to turn, and it's very, very difficult when you want bonds. You want the bond markets to be very, very boring. Boring is the new fashion. You want them to be boring because, as you quite rightly say, pension funds and the rest of it use them as the plumbing for the financial for the financial system, and also take them as a bellwether of what's going to happen in the future. Again, we all feel our way forward with a white stick, don't we? But I mean, that's what they're for. And we like them to be boring. We don't like them to be excited. It looks like things could change by the end of the day. It looks like the Bank of England extinguished those kind of flames. But that's going to be the story. Where does this go from here? We've had a mini budget. We've had no independent figures attached to that budget. We work in a very, very strong democracy here. And we like people to explain what's going on. We understand that politicians don't necessarily want to do that because some of them can't. I was listening to a finance minister this morning who was quite good, but I was listening to Keir Starmer, who, when questioned about various parts of the economy, had no idea what was going on. So that's what we're in the hands of at the moment. The only consensus in this is fear and greed. It's the normal kind of thing that the markets have, though the only two constants. It's unhappy, it's not very moral, but that's the way it is, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael.